A question that I get asked lots is, how did I become a professional adventurer? How is it that I get paid to go on adventures and expeditions and then can make an income and a living from sharing my stories from going on those adventures? So in this video, I wanted to share a little bit about my journey on how I made this career possible and a few top tips for anyone that's thinking they also might want to become a professional adventurer. I'll start by saying that my job now is a little bit different than it was a few years ago when my sole focus was just building a career as a professional adventurer. And now I also split my time running the Love Her Wild community. So Love Her Wild is a non-profit women's adventure community that I founded and set up. And even though there is lots of admin and other tasks involved in that, that does also require me to get outdoors lots and lead expeditions and to go do exciting things. Of course, any adventurer will tell you that the first step of making a career from being an adventurer is that you actually have to go on an adventure. My first big adventure was hiking the length of Israel. At the time, I was working in very different jobs. I'd flipped between being an administrator and working for a consulting firm to moving into fundraising, and then I retrained to be a secondary school teacher and very quickly realised while I was training that this wasn't a job that I was going to enjoy. I really struggled with 9-to-5 living as well, and just on that treadmill, really struggling with the commute and the winters each year and getting tired and run down with my London lifestyle. Now, I should mention that I don't come from an outdoorsy background at all. I didn't know anyone that had done anything as big or exciting as an epic multi-day hike. So when I discovered the Israel National Trail in a National Geographic article, I became fixated on this and immediately sparked my interest, and I began doing more research, and I had this real urge that I wanted to go and do this too. I ended up doing the Israel National Trail with my husband. It was initially intended to be a sabbatical, so we were both going to take a year out from our careers to go do the hike and then do a little bit of travelling, and then we were going to return to London and pick up where we left off with our jobs. After lots of prep and planning and spending about a year saving as much as we could, we found ourselves in Israel and we began doing the hike, and it was this absolutely amazing, incredible experience, impossible for me to summarise here in just a few sentences. The whole thing took almost 2 months and completely changed my life in lots of ways, and I really built back a lot of confidence in myself and confidence in my abilities and self-belief. And it was also a really creative experience, just being in nature and being in the desert, and I had loads of thinking time of what I might want to do next or alternative careers. Before I headed off on that adventure, I'd launched my blog, which I called The Ordinary Adventurer. And writing was something I'd always wanted to do. Ever since I was younger, I wanted to be a writer, but I'd never really given myself an outlet or an opportunity to try this until I went on a hike. And I think a lot of that was just down to having lack of confidence and feeling like if I launched a blog, I had nothing interesting to write about. But suddenly I had this big adventure that I felt kind of gave me permission to keep a blog and to just casually say I was just writing it for friends and family to keep in touch and to see what we were doing on our journey. The reality is that I actually spent a lot of time writing those blogs and putting out useful tips and kit lists and breakdown of the costs and spending and things like that, and I really enjoyed it. And I saw that over the course of the hike, more and more people began finding my blog and following my journey. So by the time I finished the hike, I was starting to get sponsorships. So for example, I would get a free night or a couple of free nights in a hotel in exchange for mentioning it in one of my blog posts and putting out a social media post. I think this was the first taste that myself and Gil had of experiencing what it feels like to build something yourself and to see that you can get some kind of return for the efforts that you put into building that. And it really inspired us. So when we finished our hike, both of us said we don't want to go back to London, we don't want to go back to our jobs, we want to build something else. So why don't we, instead of going and travelling and just wasting that time sitting on beaches, we use that time to perhaps work on side hustles and other things that we enjoy and pursuing things that we enjoy, to see if we can perhaps build those over the course of the remainder of that year. I should add as well that financially we were in a really good position because we'd saved a big chunk of money to do the hike and actually barely spent anything, because it turns out when you're wild camping in the desert and living off pasta and couscous, you end up not really spending much money at all. So we were in this great position that we could go and continue traveling. We purposefully headed to cheap countries like East Africa, where we could live very cheaply and spend a big chunk of our days working on our side hustles while also finding time on the side to enjoy the places we were in. This gave me time to keep building my platform, and this is a really important part of becoming a professional adventurer. Unless you're happy just leading expeditions and being a mountain leader and getting paid to do that and to lead groups, if you want to go on your own expeditions and get sponsorship and get paid to do that, then you've got to have a platform that you can provide value to whichever company you're working with. So over the course of the next year and 18 months, I put everything into continuing to grow my blog, growing my social media presence, making films, taking photos, sharing anything cool or exciting that we could do. And I kept thinking up new adventures to make sure that I kept having fresh content I could share and talk about on my platforms. Now, I had no idea how I was actually going to make money. There's no blueprint of how you become a professional adventurer and how you build a career for yourself in this way. So I just found lots of other people that were already doing it and just tried to learn what sort of things they were doing, how they were making an income. And I just tried as many different things as possible that I could think of. So as well as blog writing, I started to do sponsored posts and writing articles. I began giving talks. I began organising my own adventures and selling those. I tried monetizing my website in different ways, and I also launched the Love Her Wild community, which started out as a really simple Facebook group. It was an idea that I had while I was hiking in the desert because I'd barely seen any women going on this adventure. I hadn't met another woman doing the trail, and I just wanted to connect with other women. So I launched this Facebook group, and that was also starting to grow in the background and bringing all sorts of exciting opportunities my way. It took about a year before I started to make any real money, and probably another year on top of that before it began to become a little bit more regular. Over time, I got to a place where I could think up anything cool or exciting, any adventure that kind of came to mind. I could put together a pack and I could sell it to brands and outdoor companies that would then sponsor that, which would pay for all the costs of me going on the adventure, and usually some left over for my time and energy that I put into organising and making that happen. I think there's some really key learnings from my journey that anyone who's thinking they also want to pursue this need to take away and to really focus on. So one of them is just persistence. Like, none of this happens overnight. I was working pretty hard on my sabbatical to build my platform and to work towards this career. For most people, they might not have that luxury, so you might be doing this on the side, and it's going to probably take 2 or 3 years or maybe even more to get to a place where you might realistically be able to quit your day job just to focus on being a professional adventurer. I think learning from others is really important. Rather than trying to work everything out yourself, go onto someone's website, absorb everything that they've got, whether they've written books or blogs or shared videos on how they got to where they are. And once you've absorbed all that and you've done lots of research, then don't be afraid to reach out to them and ask specific questions. I'm always happy to help people, and I found lots of adventurers that I've reached out to have also been happy to answer questions. And being smart about the things that you focus on is also really important. So try lots of different things. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. See what works and then do more of that. But make sure that you don't just focus on one thing. I think all the adventurers I know have several different sources of income, and that's really important because it's a really changing, unpredictable job, and you never know when an income might drop, which will then mean that you can lean on other sources of income that you have. So you've got to be willing to try lots of different things and to not give up and to be really persistent to making this happen. I'll put some links below to other videos that I've made and blog posts that would be helpful for anyone that wants to find out more or wants to pursue this as a career. And please do let me know in the comments if you have any questions at all. Like I said, I'm very happy to help. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.